I am EX07. I come from the year 2510. In your time, people still worry about electricity bills, climate disruptions, and entire cities losing power. But in my time, energy is harvested in limitless ways, to the point where humanity no longer knows what it means to run out of power. Have you ever imagined what that world might look like? From dream to energy revolution. I am EX07. I come from the year 2510. Do you know what infinite energy looks like? Where do you think electricity comes from? A power plant? A solar panel? A wind turbine? In your time, energy is a commodity. Limited, expensive, and sometimes dangerous. But in my time, energy is generated endlessly, without the fear of running out. As of 2025, over 80% of the world's energy still relies on fossil fuels like oil, natural gas, and coal. Although solar and wind power are advancing, they remain unstable, dependent on weather and geography. For example, solar panels don't work at night. The wind may not blow. This forces us to depend on massive battery systems or fallback power from coal and gas plants. Even worse, every passing minute, we're burning through resources that cannot be replaced. That's not infinite energy. That's borrowing from the future. The future. Uninterrupted renewable systems. From the year 2300 onward, humanity entered a new age. Self-sustaining energy. In 2510, we no longer turn off the lights to save power, because our energy systems are designed to never run out. Imagine a world where every surface can harvest energy. Not just rooftops, but windows, clothing, and even roads. Bio-integrated nanomaterials are embedded into nearly everything, capable of absorbing light, heat, sound vibrations, and body motion to generate power. And that's just the beginning. In your time, infinite energy is a controversial concept. But in the future, zero-point energy, once only imagined in science fiction, became reality. This is energy drawn from quantum vacuum fluctuations. In 2412, a lab aboard Earth's orbital station Leo 17 first extracted a trace of this energy, enough to power a small city for several minutes. Since then, cold fusion cores were developed, mimicking the sun's core conditions within a baseball-sized reactor. But it's not magic. These systems are managed by self-correcting AI that maintains balance at the atomic level. The fundamental shift: self-learning, circular systems. Instead of generating power and storing it, by 2510 we harvest, recycle, transmit, balance in real time through neural energy networks. Every building, vehicle, and device becomes a living node in the grid, auto-adjusting to support the collective energy ecosystem. When someone sleeps, the system reallocates their unused energy to others in need. Waste no longer exists. Because infinite energy doesn't begin with technology. It begins with a question. Could we build a world that never runs dry, if we dare to change? In the next part, I'll show you the turning points that led humanity out of darkness, from the Great Grid Collapse of 2094 to the birth of the first artificial sun. I'm EX07, and I'll take you there. The global energy crisis and historic turning points. Do you know what forced humanity to change its entire approach to energy? It wasn't technology, it was a catastrophe. In August 2094, the strongest solar flare in over 500 years struck Earth, causing a total failure of the global power grid. Within just 7 minutes, over 4.2 billion people lost access to electricity. Communication satellites went dark, electric vehicles stopped, hospitals shut down, supply chains disintegrated. The world was thrown back to a pre-industrial state. Countries that relied on solar and wind were thought to be resilient. But without sufficient storage systems and with centralized grids, everything collapsed in a chain reaction. This became known as the longest night of humanity, a night that lasted for months. After 2094, the world abandoned centralized, vulnerable energy systems. Instead, we moved toward distributed energy networks, where every house, vehicle, and device became an independent energy generator. Tokyo was the first to successfully prototype symbiotic bioenergy cities, where humans, plants, and technology co-produced energy based on real-time needs and behavior. Energy was no longer something controlled from above. It became a flexible, aware flow. Buildings knew when to conserve, when to share. In 2179, researchers in New Geneva developed the first emotional energy AI. It didn't just measure how much electricity you needed, it sensed your intentions, mood, and biological state, adjusting your environment accordingly. For example, when you're stressed, lights soften, ventilation slows to reduce your heart rate, and all of this happens using the least amount of energy possible while enhancing your quality of life. Another major milestone came in 2222, when the first stable asymmetric fusion reactor went online in Guangzhou. Nicknamed the artificial sun, it could generate 10 times more energy than traditional fusion with zero harmful radiation. But the breakthrough wasn't in the output. It was in the miniaturization and distribution. Within 50 years, compact artificial sun reactors were embedded in residential zones, spacecraft, classrooms, and even autonomous vehicles. Do you remember when I spoke of the Great Darkness in 2094? That event didn't just force humanity to rebuild. It forced us to look at energy sources we had long ignored. Lightning, a colossal power humanity couldn't harness, in 2025. A single bolt of lightning can unleash over 1 billion joules of energy, enough to power a home for an entire month. And yet, in 2025, humankind could not harvest lightning, not due to a lack of imagination, but because no materials could withstand its brutal force. Attempts to store or channel lightning failed because the current was too strong, too fast. Conductors melted, shattered, or vaporized. No technology could precisely direct a strike. Lightning was admired, feared, but ultimately considered untouchable. In 2510, when 9th-gen superconductors arrived and lightning became a resource. It wasn't until 2430 that researchers successfully synthesized quantum shell conductors, materials capable of withstanding ultra-high currents in microseconds, self-repairing after each strike event, instantly converting heat and voltage via plasma buffering layers. From that point on, lightning harvesting spires rose in storm zones across the globe, especially in the Amazon, Indonesia, and northern Canada. Lightning was no longer feared. It was harvested like rain. The ionospheric induction net, a concept inconceivable in 2025. The ionosphere, located 60 to 1,000 kilometers above Earth, is a dense layer of charged particles energized by ultraviolet rays, cosmic waves, solar winds striking Earth's magnetic field. But in 2025, no one had the technology to reach or utilize it. Satellites were too expensive for continuous power generation. No drone could hover that high or gather enough energy to justify the cost. There was simply no device capable of anchoring into that realm to extract power safely or efficiently. In 2510, humanity learned how to anchor the sky, enter the ionospheric induction net, developed in 2472. Tens of thousands of plasma kites, ultralight, magnetically suspended and electrically steered, were deployed into the ionosphere. These devices absorb ionized atmospheric energy and EM field fluctuations, beam power back to Earth via low-frequency conductive lasers, operate continuously unaffected by weather, night, or seasons. With this network, the sky was no longer a limit. It became a planet-wide power plant. Off-Earth energy, the zero-gravity race for survival and supremacy. We no longer limit energy collection to Earth because humans don't just need energy to live. They need it to defend, attack, and assert power. Space, humanity's new energy frontier. In your time, solar panels on satellites are only powerful enough to run sensors, communication systems, and a few small tools. But by 2510, satellites are no longer just tools. They become orbital power stations. Thousands of high-orbit solar satellites continuously absorb sunlight beyond Earth's atmosphere, where clouds, nightfall, and atmospheric distortion can't interfere. They collect energy at 5 times the efficiency of Earth-based systems. This power is then transmitted back to Earth via low-frequency energy lasers, or bounced off lunar receivers before being amplified back down. No more limitations of day or night. The Moon, from natural satellite to artificial energy mirror. Since 2378, space agencies no longer settled for planting flags on the Moon. They began constructing lunar energy reflector stations. Hundreds of hovering plasma mirrors now span the lunar surface, precisely positioned to concentrate sunlight onto targeted areas on Earth for heating or solar assistance, redirect energy beams to space stations, or supply orbital defense platforms with continuous power. The SolarNet system, an orbital mesh of artificial suns. Farther out, humanity built massive solar constellations at the Lagrange points, areas of gravitational balance between Earth and the Sun, where satellites remain suspended in stable positions. The SolarNet functions like a second skin around the Sun, gathering solar energy and routing it across the entire interplanetary grid. It powers more than cities, spacecraft, and extraterrestrial factories. It also supports something you may not expect: energy for weapons, especially laser weapons. Did you know that back in your century, global powers had already started investing in laser weapon projects? By 2510, lasers are no longer experimental tools. They are the ultimate weapon, fast, precise, and nearly impossible to intercept. But there's a catch. Lasers consume enormous amounts of energy. That's why the space energy race isn't just about sustainability. It's also about power, in every sense of the word. I'll cover laser weapons in a dedicated video, but remember this: where there's energy strong enough to destroy, there's always someone ready to control it. Why we still need batteries, even in a world of infinite energy, endless energy, yet batteries keep the world stable. In my time, energy is harvested constantly, from the sun, from lightning, from wind, from the air itself, and even from deep within the earth. But natural energy flows are not always stable. They fluctuate with the environment, with weather, with biological activity. They're powerful, but unpredictable. That's why we rely on something called flow stabilizer cells, futuristic batteries designed not to store massive power, but to regulate it with micro-level precision, ensuring the entire planetary grid runs smoothly and without interruption. These batteries aren't made of lithium or graphite. They're built from self-modulating quantum crystals, a semi-living material that can adjust its energy output frequency in real time, heal itself after extreme discharge cycles. We've built a world where energy never runs out. And what do you think about infinite energy in the year 2510? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm EX07. I come from the year 2510, and I want to hear your answer from the future.